SDK.finance. Hi, let me show you a demo case of using APIs related to the user management section. This is the API used to create users in the system. It can be used to create both business and service users. To do this, you need to provide the login, which can be either the email or the phone number of the user you want to create. You also need to specify the role and, if creating a service user, the organization ID. For service users, the organization ID should be the system organization ID, which can be obtained from the response of the authorization API or the user's view if accessed by any service role. Let's try this request in Postman. All the required fields are already filled in with valid data. The system organization ID is provided, and the user being created will be a compliance manager in this case. After calling the API, the user is successfully created. Now, we can call another API to get the list of users created in the system. This API allows you to apply filters in the request body. For example, we can provide the ID of the newly created user, which we take from the response of the user creation API, and use it as a filter parameter. After pasting the ID and calling the API, we can see that the user created in the previous step is present in the response. Additionally, it is possible to change the role of an existing user. Let's look at the API for this. You need to paste the member ID of the user whose role you want to change in the request URL and specify the new role in the request body. You can also view the list of all roles created in the system using another API. Let's try this API in Postman. The response gives us a list of all roles available in the system. Returning to the API for changing a user's role, I will copy the member ID of the user from the response of the creation API and paste it into the request URL. For this example, I will change the role from Compliance Manager to CFO. After calling the API, the request is successful, and the role has been updated. The user now has all the permissions of a CFO instead of a compliance manager. The response of the API confirms the role change. It is also possible to delete a user using another API. To do this, provide the user ID of the user you want to delete in the request URL. You can copy the user ID from the creation API response and paste it into the request URL. After calling the API, the response confirms that the user was successfully deleted. To double-check, you can call the API again to verify that no users are found for the given ID. In the system, it is also possible to create custom roles. Note that it is only possible to create service custom roles, not business roles. To create a custom role, use the appropriate API. In the request body, you can provide the name of the role, a description, the permissions you want to grant, supervising roles, roles that can manage users in this new role, and manageable roles, roles that the new role can manage. You can also specify whether user management is allowed for this role. Before creating a custom role, you can call another API to retrieve the list of permissions available in the system. The response shows all permissions, allowing you to choose the ones to assign to your new role. Returning to the API for creating a custom role. Let's create a new service role named Finance Manager. All required information, such as permissions, description, supervising roles, and manageable roles, is provided in the request body. After calling the API, the new role is successfully created. You can now create users in the Finance Manager role with all the settings and permissions specified during its creation. It is also possible to update an existing role using another API. You can provide the role code in the request URL and make any necessary changes to the role. Additionally, there is an API to delete a custom service role. If needed, you can call this API, providing the role code in the request URL. There are also APIs to manage roles and permissions. One API allows you to add or remove permissions for existing service roles, while another allows you to manage other existing roles. These APIs provide flexibility in customizing and managing roles and permissions within the system. That's all. Thank you for your attention.